All right, welcome back to Wood and Sticks. As always, recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. And that studio is moving as we are on the road here in the process of a 14-day Minnesota Wild road trip. I am currently recording in San Jose, beautiful Santana Row. It's, mid-50s, sunny. I know the people back in Minnesota hate to hear that right now because I've been getting texts and pictures and Twitter updates on all the weather. And it's been a challenge back home, and I certainly get that. We'll be back to it. I think we just talked this morning. We've crossed off 3 days, and we've got 11 days left. So as you can tell by my voice, I am fighting off a cold. Winnipeg is where this journey started. And this is, I've mentioned this before. This is my 20th year traveling with the Minnesota Wild. I have never seen a road trip like this. It's awesome that this group gets to do it because it's a fun group of guys. Coaches are great to work with, and they're playing really well right now. So a win in Winnipeg in comeback fashion. And then last night, as we record here on a Tuesday, we had the big win in Vegas, where Vegas is a little shorthanded right now, and Minnesota got a lead and just took the game over early. And really, Vegas was never in the hockey game. And so in that building, against a team of that caliber, that doesn't happen very often. So I think that validates the confidence that this team is playing with right now. And we're going to dive into that a little bit today. We're going to talk a little World Juniors, which is going on. I'm having FOMO as a hockey junkie. It would have been really cool to be in town to witness all these games and the vibe in both St. Paul and over in Dinkytown. So, I've got the NHL Network on as we speak. It's constantly on in all my hotel rooms. And I try to get as much flavor from that event as I can. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll set up some shows for the new year. This is kind of an end of the year type of deal. We're going to take a look back and we're going to take a look forward. And certainly with the hockey that's upon us, the high school seasons are both in full swing. We'll have some guests here in the new year that can talk both boys and girls high school hockey as we get closer to running into late February and early March when those state tournaments happen. I think there'll be some relevant guests to have here on the show. But today is just going to be a quick conversation to get caught up and really celebrate the game we love so much. I think a lot of times at the new year, people hit the reset button in their life in a lot of different areas. And for us here at the Talk North podcast platform, very thankful that we have such a great group of listeners that tune in every week and support our show. We've got some great partners on this project, which we'll get to, that support this endeavor. And I just want to say thank you to all those folks, and especially you guys, the listeners, for making this such a fun operation for me. And, a day like today, it's a practice day in San Jose, not a lot going on. We got in late last night. I look forward to this. I look forward to the catch up, so to speak, and to talking about this Minnesota Wild team. So let's get right to it. I love to track the betting odds. We were just in Las Vegas, spent Sunday at my favorite spot, just off the strip. It is the Westgate Sportsbook. Spent the entire day watching football there. I was in a fantasy football championship that did not go my way. One of our former guests on the show, Brandon Molesky, from KFAN, him as Tenna B, the producer on the Common Man program. He got the W. I got run over. He had both Puka Nacua and Bijan Robinson. So if there's any doubt going into last night, he put the cherry on top of the Sunday. I'm happy to get second. It was an 18-man guillotine league. So Sunday I was kind of wallowing in my depression. But I did in the sportsbook with some buddies. We were out there. There were 6 or 8 of us that spent the day. I found a couple of quirky scheduling opportunities where some folks were given some, let's just say, gambling advice. I'm a tout all summer long at Canterbury Park. That's what I do. I tout. I'm a predictaholic. If you know me, and if you listen to the show on a regular basis, I love making predictions. And so I looked at that NHL schedule on that Sunday, and I was really focused on the football. So I wasn't going to dabble in the hockey, but I had a couple strong opinions. And I said, knowing what the Wild just went through. That first game after having 3 days off of the holiday and having to travel and the day of the game. And, I'm talking these kids were exhausted. Guys like Matt Boldy in their prime here in their early 20s. I talked to him. I talked to Drew Erickson, who's an absolute workout machine. And they were saying, like, by the end of that day, how exhausted they were. We got up at 5:30. Our plane left at 6:30 a.m. We landed, went straight to the rink. We had a morning skate. They had day rooms set up for all of us. We went back to the hotel, took a couple hours of rest, and we were back at the rink by 3:30 for a 6 p.m. game against the Jets. And in that game, the Wild found a way to win it, which is awesome. But here's my point. There were 2 teams in the National Hockey League that were playing Sunday, all right, that had just played on Saturday and had done the travel thing where you wake up and travel and your first day back is an actual game. And the glowing example was the Chicago Blackhawks, who had to fly all the way down to Dallas and had an unbelievable game on the road against the Stars. They rallied. They got it to overtime. Nobody scored. They went to the shootout, and the Chicago Blackhawks pulled off a pretty big upset, which is great. Now they're asked to fly back home and play a Sunday game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the Penguins did not play on Saturday. They were one of just 2 teams that didn't play. They were sitting there rested, had a normal practice day, had a normal travel day, and now they're sitting on the Hawks waiting. And I told my buddies, I'm like, listen, I get it. The Penguins suck right now. They've lost 8 of 9. They're likely not going to be a playoff team. Sidney Crosby could be dealt here at the deadline. But this is the spot where the Penguins rise up because the Blackhawks are exhausted and they're fresh. And I think the first time I looked up, because again, I was kind of involved in my football production, I looked up, it was 4-0 Penguins late in the first period. You never had to sweat it. The other game with the same circumstance, it's unbelievable, was the New York Islanders. They had a game right out of the break and then had to travel to Columbus. And the Jackets did not play. And so the Jackets predictably rallied with 3 goals in the third period to win that game 4-2. So the touts were good. My football bets were, I don't know, what do the kids say these days? 6-7. It was meh. But the one smart thing I did with the football is put myself in a position where if it got to Sunday night and the 49ers pulled off the cover, I was going to have a profitable day because that was my strongest opinion. Now, I think the Bears probably deserve to cover that game, maybe even win that game. But in gambling, we don't ask how, we ask if, and we got the money. So got out of Vegas alive, made a couple of bucks, and here we are in this crazy road trip. And so let's get into it with the Wild. Right now, with the win last night, they sit at 24, 10, and 6. The best 3 teams in the National Hockey League reside in the Central Division. It is crazy. Colorado never loses. Every time I look up, they're winning another game. And they did so again last night. They have 2 regulation losses, which is just insanity. And as well as the Wild have played, after starting 3-6-3 in October, they still haven't caught the Dallas Stars, who also continue to play terrific hockey. So where does that leave us? And I think you look at this team right now and you see the chemistry that's developing. Quinn Hughes came over, and we've got a pretty good sample now. He's been here for a couple of weeks. You can clearly see how the defensive pairings are better since that move by Bill Guerin. We talked about it on the broadcast last night. Can you imagine? I mean, years ago when we had just Brodin and Spurgeon, that was our top pair. That was the pair that was like, oh my God, we have these 2 guys. And they're still great players. But my point is, when you bring in a guy like Quinn Hughes and you pair him up with Brock Faber, who is absolutely a stud and in his prime, there's your top pair. Now, you've got Brodin and Spurgeon slotted in together. They've got chemistry. They're terrific players. They're your second set. And you want that third set to be something different. You need something. You've got these offensively gifted players that can move the puck and get up involved in the rush. And now you've got the beef on that third set with Middleton and Bogosian. So I really like the way the blue line falls together. And I think it's imperative as you look forward. And again, in the new year, that's what we do. We look forward to what lies ahead. in 2026. And I think everybody that follows this hockey team particularly is excited about what they've done. They're enjoying the season. But we're in Minnesota and we're Minnesota sports fans. And so what that does is it allows us to have that, yeah, but. And the yeah, but is, as good as this team is, they're going to be an underdog in round one of the playoffs. And as we know, and this is okay to talk about, round one has been a problem. And the core of this hockey team needs to get that monkey off their back. What I draw back to, and it's ironic we leave Las Vegas 5-2 winners last night, because the series before what happened last year just felt wrong. The one in St. Louis and the one with Dallas, where Minnesota had a 2-1 lead in both of those series and let it get away. I left the series saying that the Wild weren't good enough. They weren't mature enough. They didn't do the things you have to do at that level in the Stanley Cup playoffs to get the job done. I felt differently last year. And so now we're 8 months removed. I think I talked about it last night during our broadcast on FanDuel. It was 244 days since that gut-wrenching, aorta smashing Game 5 overtime loss where Hartman thought he scored the go-ahead goal with a minute left to go, and Nyquist was an inch offsides, and I don't want to get into the details, but it still sucks. Bottom line is this. I went back and watched the highlights of all 6 games in that series last year. The Wild were the better hockey team. If you look at the analytics, if you just use the eye test, you just digest the series that way. Now, give Vegas credit. They won the close games. They won all the overtime games. They won all the one-goal games. But I left that series saying this group might be different. This group is getting to a place where they might have what it takes to make that run. And I think it's the type of group where if they can get out of that first round, if they can get that big old gorilla off their back, that they might be off and running. So it's daunting. If you're going to have to play Dallas and Colorado, the top 2 teams in the league, in the playoffs, it is very, very daunting. But what I'll say is this. They're a better team dramatically than they were a year ago. I mean, Quinn Hughes obviously speaks to that, and that's just simple. But Maplewood has gone from being this really, really good player to bona fide superstar. And I go back to that series against the Golden Knights last year, and something clicked within Maplewood, and he just was a beast. And he's put the work in, and it's carried over. And he's on pace right now to be a 50-goal scorer in the National Hockey League. And guess what? The other guy, Kirill Kaprizov, he's likely going to get into that 50-goal range as well. It's just where the Wild are right now compared to where they were these last few years, but specifically last year. And I'll take it another step further. As great as Marc-Andre Fleury was, and the impact that he's had on this team is still being felt. He has the ripple effect that he brought to this organization. I had no idea at the time what it would be, but it's significant. And having conversations with these players, young players like Gustafsson, like Wallstead, like Boldy, and the way he practiced and the way he attacked the game every single day, that affected some of these young players that were looking up to this guy saying, this is what a 3-time Stanley Cup champion does. And so I think the effect that Fleury had on these young players as they watched him go about his business is still reaping the benefits for the Minnesota Wild. And it's exciting. Like, it's exciting. And so as good as he was, Gustafsson's now a better goalie. Oh, by the way, Jesper Wallstedt spent time with Marc-Andre Fleury. He's a better goalie. And now the Wild have this 1-2 punch. So they're going to be the betting underdog, most likely, in those playoff series if they have to face Dallas, and certainly if they have to face Colorado. But when you have that 1-2 punch in goal, and I get that Jake Ottinger is unbelievable. He'll be representing the red, white, and blue in February at the Olympics. He's phenomenal. But the bottom line is this. With a 1-2 punch in goal, knowing what type of series these are likely going to be, and they're likely going to be 6-7 game grinders, this team is built to win in the postseason like they never have. In all my years covering this team, it's never been close to this good, not even remotely close to this good. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this group can do. This road trip has amplified what I already kind of felt about this group, but the adversity they face, the matchups with good teams like in Vegas, they seem to rise up and play their best hockey in these big spots. So let's let it play out and let's see what Bill Guerin does. There's a lot of talk right now about trying to find a center. I like the way the team's put together right now. I think they're good enough right now to make a run. And I don't think it's, and maybe it's ironic, maybe it's not, but the one time in the history of the Minnesota Wild, as we celebrate 25 years this year, their anniversary, the one time they made it to the conference final, looked like a team that might make it to the cup. They had two goalies, Dwayne Roloson and Manny Fernandez, and they were phenomenal. And this team is dramatically better at every other position. So I get the Minnesota sports fan in all of us saying, yeah, but I understand it. I respect it. I am going to be 59 here in February. I've lived it, and I've lived it for almost 6 decades. Like, we don't always get nice things. So you can have that, but you can still enjoy the season, and you can still enjoy seeing superstar talent like we've never had with the Minnesota Wild. I marvel at what these guys are doing. To be able to have two absolute studs up front that have their own line, and Zuccarello and Kaprizov have their own magic. And you can throw Yurov up there, you can throw Hartman up there. They're going to be good no matter what. And now to see what this line has done with Boldy, Eck, and yes, Marcus Johansson. I was going to get here at some point. Marcus Johansson. Billy Guerin, by the way, are you kidding me? Signing this guy for $800,000 on a 1-year deal? He leads the Minnesota Wild with a plus 21 marking. Best on the roster, a roster full of studs, mind you. He's got 12 goals. He's got 20 assists. He had a 4-point night in Vegas, and he's not slowing down. And so, I mean, I get that the Wild overpaid for Kirill Kaprizov. They had to. They had no choice. And now I think watching this team play and seeing the affection these guys have for each other, why Kirill wanted to stay the whole time. His agent pushed it to the edge of the cliff, and guess what? They won that battle, and that's okay. You're paying Matt Boldy $7 million. Matt Boldy is one of the 10 best players in this league, period. Think about that for a minute. And oh, by the way, Marcus Johansson is making less than one sheet a year. So you got to balance out the good with the bad in terms of where you're paying some of these guys. And long-term, the Kirill deal is going to work out just fine. It's exciting to follow this hockey team right now. And so let's enjoy the ride. We can be Minnesota sports fans, and we can have that doom and gloom later. But right now, let's enjoy the product that we get to watch on a nightly basis. And so sit back and if you love the game, and if you're listening to this show, you probably do. Nights like last night are a prime example of watching these guys make plays. The tic-tac-toe play on one of those goals that X scored last night, it doesn't get any better. The way they dominated a good team like Las Vegas in their building, huge crowd, loud building, and it was dead silent throughout most of that hockey game. That's fun. Tomorrow, New Year's Eve, afternoon game, San Jose. We get to watch the Minnesota Wild take off against one of the great young players in the history of the National Hockey League, 19-year-old Macklin Celebrini. This guy last night, in a win against Anaheim, put up 3 points. Okay, young studs do that. Okay, cool, 3 points. Here's where it gets interesting. As we reach almost the halfway point of the season, Macklin Celebrini has 10 games this season where he's posted 3 or more points 10 times. He's been kept off the score sheet 9 times, which happens a lot more often to star players. 19 years old. And we get to watch the Wild try to figure out how to slow this guy down. And if Team Canada does things the way they're supposed to do it, We get to watch this guy at age 19 play in the Winter Olympics. I live for stuff like this. In St. Paul, watching this kid up close, he got the puck in one of those games in St. Paul in the neutral zone, and it was a clean breakaway. And I was standing next to one of our PR guys, and I said, "That's the game." And he goes, "What?" I said, "It's over." He walked in, and he went 5-hole on Gustafson like it was nothing. This kid is electric. He's so good for the league. He's going to be a fixture for the next 15 to 20 years in the National Hockey League. And tomorrow I get to wake up and go over to the rink and watch this guy ice level. He's a wizard. And certainly, as I work alongside the Minnesota Wild, my affections lie there. But it is fascinating to get to see how that tug of war goes. And so as we ring in the new year, let's appreciate what we have right here and right now. If you've followed the Wild from day one, or if you just jumped on the bandwagon right now, I've been here all the way. I was a season ticket holder when they started. I was a beaten down North Star fan that watched the team leave the town. And I was very apprehensive to get involved. But I'm glad I did. And 6 years later, I got hired. And now in year 20, I'm still here. And this is without a doubt the most entertaining, the most talented. And in terms of winning a Stanley Cup, this is as close as this organization has ever been. And I know they went to the conference final. And I know all about Andrew Burnett's goal in Denver. I know all about the upset against Vancouver. I get all of it. But this group right now, the talent that they have, the way they play, the coaching staff, the way they're coached, like I am telling you right now, this team has the capability to get all the way. We were just in Vegas. I mentioned that Westgate Sportsbook. I was talking to one of the guys that actually manages the sports betting side of things in that area. Minnesota Wild, as recent as 3 weeks ago, were in that 40 to 50 to 1 range to win the Stanley Cup. And that gives you, the feeling like, yeah, they're a bit of a long shot, but they're good enough, where the sports books have to be at least aware of them. Well, they're now down to 20 to 1. And that, from talking to the guy that works at the sports book, they are not a public team where people just bet the Minnesota Wild. The Wild kind of fly under the radar. He said that is sharp money. And sharp money is people that actually handicap the NHL on a daily basis, follow the game, and focus the majority of their betting in a calendar year into just the National Hockey League. And he said the sharp money right now is coming in on Minnesota. And that made me feel good too. It's going to be fascinating to see how the playoffs line up. We know now that they're going to be a playoff team. They put themselves in such a good position. That isn't a concern. I think for everybody that watches this team, just keep these guys moderately healthy. You're going to have injuries. Guys are going to miss time. Right now, Kaprizov and Boldy have played every single game. It's unlikely they're going to play all 82. It's possible, for sure. It's possible. But the beating these guys take on a regular basis, it's likely not going to happen. That's okay. They've earned it now with where they are in the standings to have a stretch where they maybe lose 3 or 4. And in years past, that would have been very detrimental to their playoff position. With where they are right now, not at all. So you're likely going to have to play Dallas. It feels like the 2 and 3 are just almost locked in right now. There's some separation there. And I would love the Wild to have home ice. I don't think it's that big a deal. I really don't. I think that the way the series would play out, it's likely going to go 6 or 7. I think home ice advantage in the playoffs gets really blown out of proportion. And in football, I'm a Denver Bronco fan. Everybody knows that knows me. I think football home field advantage matters way more come playoff time with the quarterbacks and the noise level and the audibles at the line of scrimmage. The crowd actually affects the strategy and what you can do within the game. Where at the hockey side of things, you talk to these players on a regular basis, they love going into somebody's building and shutting them up. Like last night in Vegas, that's one of the loudest buildings in the league, if not the loudest. They love that. They play some of their best hockey there. Ryan Hartman talked about that. We get up for playing games here because games here feel different. There's no strategy involved in the game. You have to adjust when you play NHL games on the road like you do in the NFL. You're likely going to have to play Dallas. Home or away, I don't care. If you get through that series and the monkey's off the back, Colorado is a prohibitive Cup favorite. I think last I looked, they're 3-1. Same odds as Scotty Scheffler to win the Masters. So huge betting favorite. And they are the best team on the planet, and it cannot be argued. But what I will say is this. Injuries can happen. And if either McKinnon or McCarr misses any time, they're a dramatically different hockey team. And their goaltending's been good. Blackwood, Wedgwood, the two Woods, they've been good. They've been really good. But if push comes to shove and you're actually analyzing that position, I'll take the Wall of St. Paul and the Gus Bus over those two every single day of the week. There isn't an argument to be made, in my opinion. So that is the one area where you say, well, wait a minute here. This can happen. So it'd be fun to get there. Got a long way to go. We are going to play game number 41 tomorrow here in San Jose, the absolute halfway point of the season. And if you suffered through that month of October, like we all did, watching this team go 3-6-3, they looked slow. They weren't connected. It was hard to watch. It's amazing to me how long ago that feels like and how different they look right now. So enjoy the ride. We'll ring in the new year in San Jose, watching Minnesota take on the 19-year-old phenom that we call Macklin Celebrini. And I think 2026 is going to hold all kinds of excitement and all kinds of fun for fans of the Minnesota Wild. Now, we're going to have a quick second half of the show. We're going to talk a little World Juniors and kind of a broad brush of what we're seeing within that tournament. But before we get to the second half of the show, it's time to thank the people that make this show happen. And we'll start with my dear friend, John Schweitz. He works with Minnesota Masonic Charities.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
Also want to say a special thank you here at the New Year to my dear friends at Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps.
Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where Onyx Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started.
Don't forget about the great people over at StretchLab as we look to get in better shape in 2026.
Hey, Rosa here for StretchLab in the Twin City area. I've been talking about them for months now, and for good reason. I haven't felt this good in years. It's a great add-on to your fitness routine. Stretch practitioners know how to heal what ails you. I mean, they will work on your neck, your shoulders, your hamstrings, your back. I mean, that's what's been bugging me the most. And I felt so much better after the last 3 sessions I've had than I have in months and months and months. And right now they have an introductory 50-minute stretch plus assessment discounted to only $50. It would make a great gift for the holidays. So check out StretchLab at locations throughout the Twin Cities. Book any of their stretch practitioners. They're all terrific at what they do. And tell them Rosie sent you.
And finally, it's been a December to remember. Ring in the new year with my good friends over at Lexus of Maplewood and Wayzata.
Yes, it is Lexus December to remember time. It's here. It is the very best time of year to purchase a new Lexus and it's not even close. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter which side of the town you're on, because they have locations in Wayzata and Maplewood. Too many incentives to even list right now. So there's a reason why they call it a December to remember. It's a great time to go see Charlie Swanson or his great staff. December to remember ends, you guessed it, at the end of December. So see the inventory at Lexus of Wayzata or lexusofmaplewood.com.
Back with the final segment. We'll talk World Juniors next here on Wooden Sticks. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks, final segment. And I mentioned at the top of the show I might be suffering from some FOMO. I've been watching the World Juniors now for many, many years. And if you follow the league as close as I do, you know that these are the future superstars in the National Hockey League. You look at Quinn Hughes, you look at Brock Faber, you look at Matt Boldy, you look at Kirill Kaprizov, and the list goes on. These are all guys that had great success and flashed at the World Juniors. So this is the next wave of great players that we're likely going to see. And so I like to track all the action, even though I'm on the road, see what's going on back in the Twin Cities. And it's been a lot of scuttlebutt on social media about the crowds. Let's just slow down, take a deep breath on the crowds or lack thereof in some of these spots, because in the prelim games, that's always going to be a factor. And if you're not in Canada, where they obsess over this tournament, and God bless them, because I love that about my friends north of the border, it's going to look like it's looked. When Team USA is playing, it's going to be jam-packed. And as we get into the medal round, when the big matchups happen, and I think even a prelim game like New Year's Eve with Sweden and the US, there's going to be a great crowd. Let's slow it all down. The ticket prices were a little high on the front end. The weather's been rough. And these games are still just prelim games. I think when push comes to shove, starting tomorrow on New Year's Eve, getting into the new year, when the rubber really meets the road in this tournament, I think you're going to see Minnesota hockey fans come out and really support this amazing event. So let's slow that negativity down on social media. I'm sick of hearing about it. I think it's stupid, and it's not the point. If you love the game, watch the games. Get down there, buy a ticket, or do what I'm doing from afar. Watch them and celebrate them, because they're fantastic. The game yesterday for Team USA was supposed to be kind of a cakewalk. I think the betting market had the Americans as 3.5 goal favorites. It didn't play out that way. They had to earn the money. And it was a back and forth game where they were, down one, up one, back we go, here, there, 6-5. It was crazy. Extremely entertaining hockey. So enjoy that aspect of it. Canadians had a little bit of a cakewalk against Denmark. I checked the betting market before puck drop. They were a 7.5 puck favorite. I have never seen a line like that. And I looked at DraftKings Sportsbook and I said, what did they know? And they clearly must have worked the analytics pretty well, because it took 2 late goals by Canada in the final 10 minutes of that game to make the final score 9-1. They won by 8. They covered by half a puck. And right now in the betting market, Canada is the significant favorite. They are -105 to win the gold here in the World Juniors in Minnesota. The U.S. is the second favorite, a shade over 3-1. And the talk of the tournament has been Sweden. They opened the tournament as a double-digit long shot. They're now 4-1. They're the third betting choice. They're 3-0 so far in the prelims. They come off an 8-1 win against Germany yesterday, where they looked impressive. I watched a bulk of that game in my Vegas hotel room yesterday while I was prepping for the Wild game. They look good. So that matchup with the U.S. On New Year's Eve is going to be a really, really cool battle of two of the medal favorites. And someone's going to have the inside track, obviously, to get to that final. So, yeah, for everybody here in the States or everybody north of the border, when the red, white, and blue take on Canada, it is must-see TV at all levels. Men, women, whatever. It's the greatest ever. Love it. But there are other teams to follow and other great storylines. So looking forward to all of it. And again, I'll be watching as I travel along. 11 days left on this 14-day journey. So plenty of TV time coming my way. Let's talk about a couple players that have caught my eye within this tournament. Had a chance to do a couple quick things with them on the Wild broadcast last night. Michael Hage plays for Team Canada. He is a college player over at Michigan. He was the 21st pick in the draft by the Montreal Canadiens. And he's been flashing at the college level. He was the Big Ten Rookie of the Year last year. He looks like a guy that can be a real needle mover for Team Canada. He's great on the power play. He's shifty. And like a lot of these guys that play high-level hockey, he can really shoot the puck. So keep an eye on Michael Hage. And then for me personally, the story within Team USA that I'm most connected to is a young man by the name of Will Zellers. I was lucky enough to meet him at a graduation party over in Maple Grove a couple years ago. And he was just starting his hockey journey. He had played at Shattuck. He was going to be a member of the North Dakota team and had a great go of it in Green Bay with the Gamblers. Now, the USHL, as far as junior hockey goes, it's as good as it gets. If you can produce there, not only are you going to likely be a college star, but you're likely going to have the opportunity to play pro hockey and do so at a high level. This guy scored 44 goals in the USHL, a record for the Green Bay Gamblers. He was the USHL Player of the Year. Now, he was drafted by the Avalanche, but they moved him in the deal last year that brought in Charlie Coyle at the deadline. So now the Boston Bruins have this kid's rights, and they're kind of in that weird phase where they're starting to rebuild a little bit here. And they've jettisoned off some of their key players. We just saw Brad Marchand last year win a cup with the Florida Panthers. He was a part of this Coyle deal that moved Charlie Coyle at the deadline last year. So Will Zellers, as he continues to develop playing college hockey at North Dakota, is going to have a chance to play at the National Hockey League level. He's a great young man. Loved having the chance to get to meet him and his family at that grad party. And I've kind of been following him ever since. And to see him now on this giant stage at the World Juniors show up the way he is, super, super excited for him. And that's, to me, if you're a Minnesota hockey fan, and a lot of our listeners here on Wooden Sticks are, that to me takes the enjoyment level to another peg above. Like when you get to watch Minnesota homegrown talent play at the highest level against the best players in the world representing their country, it doesn't get any better. Takes me back to watching Neil Broughton back in the Miracle on Ice run. Like that to me is a whole different level of enjoyment. So congrats to Will Zellers for what he's been able to do. Looking forward to see where his career goes. But going back to those 44 goals at Green Bay at the USHL level, that is just one hell of an accomplishment. So yeah, punch into those World Juniors. If you get the chance, if you're back in Minnesota while I'm doing the shows here on the road, get to those games. And if you don't mind, ping me on Twitter at Gorgomatic21. Let me know what you thought, what the experience was like. The World Juniors is one of those rare opportunities. You can get there in person to see the best of the best at their age. And as these medal round games get going, I mean, U.S., Canada, whether it's the semis or the finals, are you kidding me? I mean, if you have the chance, get to those games by all means. I'll be watching from the road and enjoying as much as I can. Loving the Minnesota Wild right now. Really excited about what lies ahead in 2026. And as we put a bow on this show and wrap up 2025 here on the eve of New Year's Eve over here in San Jose, thank you so much for your great support. If you have any guests that you'd like to have on or any advice you need or friends that you want to be sponsors on the show, at Gorgomatic21 is the best place to track me down. And Happy New Year to you and everybody in your family and your circle of friends. Bring it the right way by watching Macklin Celebrini and the Minnesota Wild with us on New Year's Eve afternoon. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday here. And I will catch up with you next week when we're over on the other side of California with another edition of Wooden Sticks here on the Talk North podcast platform.